So the big question is this: how do most agents who struggle to get the information that most successful agents hoard to themselves grow and prosper without this information? That's the big question, and this video cast is the answer. Welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. I'm your host, Pat Hyben. And now, for the review of the day. Meat and potatoes, 5 stars from Ben Incusi. 5 stars. Meat and potatoes is the name of this review. Pat, I've listened to Real Estate Rockstars consistently for over 2 years and love how you dig out the meat and potatoes from your guests. When the guests casually say something intriguing, Pat makes sure to dig deeper and to help us all understand the value of what was just said. This podcast has definitely helped me and my team grow. Thank you, Ben, for your 5-star review. Keep the comments coming, guys. I love them. And remember, I eat feedback for breakfast, so give me a 1-star review if you want, or a 5-star review if you want. I don't care. And the more reviews we get, the better guests we get. So please, subscribe first, and then leave us a review or wherever you're listening. All right, guys. Well, we've tried the new show for a number of episodes, and the downloads have spoken. You guys love this show. Wow, I am so honored that we can do an engaging and fun and current show that agents from all over the world are listening to and learning from about what's happening in our beloved real estate industry. So we're going to keep it up. We're excited, and welcome to today's State of the Market.
Welcome, Rockstar Nation. Thanks for tuning into the State of the Market podcast with your host, Pat Hyben and Kevin Kaufman.
All right, rock stars, I am ready for Freddie. I got Kevin Kaufman with me. We're getting ready to get down on some real estate sales news. Kevin, how you doing today?
Doing good, Pat. What's going on, my brother? Welcome back.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I went to Seattle for a week, had a little family reunion, got a little house that looked out over the Puget Sound. I can't say that word. And that was great, man. It's good to be back, though, and back in the news, and we got a lot of it today. So what do you want to talk about first, bro?
Well, I got to tell you, like, the first thing is a real estate professional that I think is kind of caught everyone's attention was President of the United States attending the NAR event last week and speaking to realtors. It seemed to get quite the reaction. So I don't know if you got a chance to catch up on that, Pat, but I thought that was pretty interesting that he would show up to an NAR event of all places. I mean, I guess he considers himself a realtor.
Yeah, well, he does, and or a real estate professional by sure. We can't see his tax returns, but I'm sure that he uses that real estate professional exemption. I guarantee you he still uses it today, even though he's taken or even though he's got another job, he's using that real estate professional that we all take and is one of the major benefits in the tax code. You know, it was, I read all about it, and, it's not abnormal or for a president to do this. Lots of presidents have addressed NAR. The last one was 2005 with Bush. So it has been 14 years or so since somebody has stepped up and done it. But the general consensus from it was very positive. You know what I mean? He went in there and he's like, "Hey, I'm one of you guys."
Yeah, he said he made some sort of mention of like it's in our blood, as you know, that he can never get it out of. He can never get real estate out of his blood. I think I read the only time he really didn't get a positive reaction was he talked about trying to pay brokers only 1% commission, and that drew some boos. He jokingly followed that up with, "Don't worry, nobody accepted it." But I tried like hell. I mean, I guess he's always negotiating, trying to get a better deal for himself. And that was probably the one thing he said that didn't resonate well with the crowd, it seems like.
Yeah, it was interesting, right? And then he said, and then I got a bunch of them down to 4%, some 5. But it's funny how he remembers all that, but I guess he knows everything, you know what I mean? And a lot of stuff he's dealing with commercial, but I think he actually probably developed a lot of condos and, had to sell said condos and had to negotiate evidently a 4 or 5% commission with the agent selling all those condos. And that was probably what he was recalling.
Yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, it sounds to me like all the quotes and one-liners I saw from people in attendance all seem to, regardless of their political affiliation, seem to appreciate his comments and appreciate his speech for the most part, again, minus that commission part, which was obviously, tongue-in-cheek, I'm sure, with some truth behind it. But hey, I guess regardless of your political affiliation, having the president of the United States address your crowd, your group of people, your peers, is probably a good sign for our industry. Quite frankly, especially when you consider all the change we got going on these days, right?
And it was a well-written speech. It was a well-targeted speech. I mean, he addressed some things. He addressed the loosening of Dodd-Frank, which has given rise to, he called them local lenders, which it has, right? But it's also given rise to brokers again, right? And if you remember,
Yes.
Brokers are starting to come out of the woodwork and just work out of their house and such like that and broker deals, which again is not a bad thing, especially from the consumer, because a broker is getting you, Lending Tree is a broker, right? So what's wrong with the little guy being a broker? So he mentioned that, which was interesting. And he also mentioned privatizing Fannie and Freddie. What are your thoughts there on some of these?
Well, I certainly, I'll talk about the broker thing first. That's been something I've noticed here just in my local market in Phoenix quite a bit over the last probably 6 to 8 months. So there's no doubt that is having an impact there, and we're starting to see more brokers, and some of those brokers feel very strongly about that's the best way to run the business. Who knows? I certainly don't. That's not my profession. But there's no doubt on the privatizing of Fannie and Freddie. That ship has essentially sailed. It's a matter of time and what the exact plan is. And quite frankly, the government has been holding them illegally, over the last 10 years. Sweeping all of their profits, something like 300.
Well, they bailed them out, right? I mean, versus
yeah,
reward.
yeah, I think bailed them out that's in the eye of the beholder. If you read some arguments there, I'm not so sure they bailed them out. Just like some of the banks didn't necessarily want to be bailed out, who didn't need to be. That's not to say Fannie and Freddie weren't in any sort of trouble. However, when you borrow $190 billion and repay $300 billion plus, that debt's been paid, and it's time to let them go on.
Yeah, time to let them go on. No, I agree. So some of the concern here, obviously, from privatizing them is first of all, one of the thoughts is, you don't just leave them as two. You throw an M80 at them, you bust them up into 10, right? There should be a bunch of them, and then they can compete. What happens with that, though, is Fannie and Freddie do take on a ton of risk by insuring all these loans. And so, what happens is these smaller companies or private companies won't want to take on said risk, right? And, mortgage insurance will increase, and eventually rates will increase. You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things we'll probably see happen as they get privatized, they get to go private, is that I wouldn't be surprised to see some regulations put around what they can and can't insure and what they can and can't buy. So it's basically try to almost like narrow their box and not give them as much flexibility. Because right now, if they were just to go totally private, they could theoretically start, lending and insuring loans that are, I'll just say out there, out of the box, right? And I think what we want to avoid is something like what happened in the last run up where, no income, no asset, no verification, those types of loans just started getting out of hand. You got a janitor working at, some place that then gets a loan for $700,000 home with no down. You can't have that again. So there's probably going to be some regulations on what they can do, which should then hopefully create more competition in that secondary market for other companies to come in and start buying and backing loans that are maybe a little more out of the ordinary, not your typical single family residence.
What's up, brokers, team leaders, office managers, and rainmakers of teams? I got a question for you today. What are the two most frustrating things about running a real estate team? The two things that cause you more headaches than anything else. Think about it. The brokers I've talked to have all given me the same answer: recruiting and retention. If you're in the same boat, if nothing you've tried seems to work, I've got some good news. Your problem finding, recruiting, and retaining high-quality agents are about to be over. I'm launching my new Retoot course, a course that provides an in-depth, first-ever look at the recruiting and retention secrets of the industry's top recruiters. To kick off Retoot's launch, I'm offering the course along with two other high-value items at a super low price to podcast listeners. Since I'm throwing in two free items with my Retoot Secrets course, I'm going to simply call it my 1-2-3 discount package. Okay, so let me talk to you about the 1-2-3 discount package. In addition to Retoot, you're going to get a subscription for each of your teammates or anybody in your office to my Big Profit weekly jackpot emails, which are basically agents from around the world giving advice on how to increase your profit on a daily basis in this business. If your agents put these effective, easy to implement tips to use, their sales and most importantly, their profits will improve. Plus, I'll provide you with a year's worth of monthly sales meetings, content to have at your sales meeting so you don't have to struggle figuring out what to say to your agents or your team. I'm calling it my Lunch and Learn sales training series. That's an entire year's worth of sales meetings that you won't have to plan and that your agents are guaranteed to get massive value from. So to recap, purchasing the 1-2-3 discount package gets you 1, my brand new Retoot course, 2, my Big Profit Agents weekly jackpot emails for everybody in your office, and 3, a year's worth of Lunch and Learn training sessions. If you want this limited time package, act fast and go to hibandigital.com/123. Real easy, hibandigital.com/123. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting because if you do privatize them, like you said, that there's internal accountabilities with that, right? So if one of these private mortgage insurers, let's just call them, or I don't know the word to use, but if one of these pieces of Fannie and Freddie or a private Fannie and Freddie back a loan and it goes bad, they are the whole concept is that they package them and they sell them as securities. So that security will then be looked at as, well, how do you say this? Fannie's securities return this amount and have had this many bad loans, and Freddie's return this amount and have had this many bad loans, and Janie's and Arnold's and all these others, and then people that invest in these, or companies that invest in these, insurance companies, whatever companies that invest in these brokerages can determine, which one they want to buy, which one they want to invest in based on, well, yeah, this guy had a bunch of shitty loans that went bad, but his average return is this. I think I'll put money in that one. Does this make sense? I mean, that's essentially what they're
I mean,
doing.
that's ultimately what happens, right? And so I think what they've got to, again, I think what they're looking to do is, as they go back to private, make sure that there's some more controls in place to avoid anything going really bad once they go to sell off these securities, package these up and sell them as securities. So we'll see. Everything I've read, and I follow this closely, everything I've read is that they should be able to, the treasury sweep from their profits, probably the last one has occurred. I guess there could be one more later this year, but it sounds like they're done with those, because if they're going to let them go private, they've got to have enough cash on hand. Right now, they're only letting them keep a small amount of cash. So my guess is they'll let them keep their next few quarters' profits so they can build that up. They'll probably then issue more shares for sale on the open market so they can raise even more money and be more of a secured entity, and then give them some new rules to go out and play with and kind of send them off back out into the wilderness. We'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. Well, anyways, the Trump speech was good. He said he's going to go back in retirement when he's finished being president. He's going to go back into real estate by choice. So that was a nice way for him to kind of wrap it all up. So, what do you think about Nextdoor here, buddy? Nextdoor, which is not a real estate company per se, but their revenues, some of their revenues being generated through real estate companies. They raised $123 million. When we say this, it sounds so easy to say, but it's basically put this company at a valuation of $2 billion or at a total raise of $2 billion. Is that something for real estate agents to be concerned of? How does that end up on a real estate sales show like ours?
Well, I mean, so the reality is Nextdoor is nothing more than a social platform, but it breaks it out into neighborhoods. So I'll give you a great example. Like I was on mine yesterday because there was a couple bobcats in our neighborhood. We get wild animals. I live in the desert, and we get wild animals. So people post pictures like, hey, I saw a bobcat on, I live in this neighborhood. It's within a couple miles of you, right? So in case you got small pets, you can bring them in. I've seen people find pets and find like services, babysitters, dog walkers, just stuff kind of going on in your hyper local community is kind of their focus, right? So like when you sign up, like you've got to give them the name of your subdivision, your address. In a lot of cases, they mail you a postcard to be able to confirm your identity and confirm that you belong there. And so what this does is it's got people's hyper local focused attention. Now, where that comes into play for us as realtors is real estate is a hyper local thing, right? So selling real estate in a particular neighborhood for somebody who wants to be a specialist now, that's potentially a great advertising opportunity. So there's already ad revenue there. They do sell ad space to realtors and a few other service folks. What their long game plan is, I don't really know. Obviously, when you get enough eyeballs, you can then monetize that, and that's clearly their game. And I think they've tried a few different ways to monetize now over the last 12, 18 months, and we'll see what happens. I know that they've got an exclusive deal with Keller Williams too, to use some of their data on the neighborhood, on the neighborhood standpoint, because they've got some really good data lines as far as like what's going on in a particular neighborhood that a lot of other companies don't have. And the great part of it is the fact that it's generated by the users who live in the neighborhood, and they've verified that they live in that neighborhood. So my guess is,
well, yeah, well, if you're going back to that, what you said about being able to post a market analysis, if you're the agent, now I don't know if all agents can do this, but if you're the agent that's allowed to post a market analysis every week, people are curious about that stuff. What's going on? Oh, this house sold for this, or this house sold for this. Providing you give a lot of details, people love that. I used to pay money to be on the back page of neighborhood newsletters, and I got a ton of listings from it. All I would do is post a market analysis.
Yeah, I mean, everything from that to like advertising your open houses in the neighborhood, you name it. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to continue to be a bigger player in the real estate landscape. And so I definitely thought it was worthy of adding here on this real estate show, because they're going to continue to show up as a player in our industry.
Yeah, and so, one of the thoughts on that too is exclusive listings are coming soon that people are putting on Nextdoor, and that leads to our next topic of discussion. This Council of MLSs met in DC last week, right? And there was some brimstone and fire being spit on the microphone. They were like, some of these new brokers that are coming into town, right?
Yeah.
Are looting our industry, is what was said. Now, talk to me about that.
Yeah, kind of looting the industry and sort of a free-for-all, I think, was some of the other words used there. I think the important thing here is Danae Evans, who she is the Council for Multiple Listing Services CEO, participated in a few prep calls with Department of Justice officials and repeatedly asked one question: what does this do for the consumer? Now, that's a double-edged sword, if you ask me, because in my humble opinion, I think
wait a minute. What does what do for the consumer?
I think her point was, like, there's these companies or people, as they said, looting the industry in this free.
And to be specific, she was talking about number one, Long and Foster, and number two, Compass, because Compass came out with a Compass exclusives, and Long and Foster came out with a coming soon. And it ties into that private MLS that we talked about before, PMLS. So now everybody, just like everybody getting into iBuyers, everybody's getting into coming soons. And she's all hell bent out of shape about it. So keep going.
Yeah, so let me read this, because I think this is a good point. Here's a quote from her. She said, "The drive for competitive advantage, for a market differentiator, for market share, I really believe is sort of going after the heart of our industry, and I'm a little concerned." She said, "I believe it's short-sighted and not necessarily in the best interest of the consumer." And I personally, Pat, I don't disagree with her.
No, I agree with her.
I agree with her on that. But the opposite side of that coin to me is that we've, as a behavior, as an industry, have behaved that way ourselves. That wasn't necessarily in the best interest of the consumer. It's been in the best interest of the realtor or the broker, and that's not okay either. And so, I like, for us to say these guys are bad and we're good, to me, that's no different than Gary Keller standing on stage and saying Zillow's bad, or Boomtown's bad, or Commissions Inc. is bad, but I'm good with your data. I won't take your data, but those guys are bad guys. Like, the reality is as an industry, we're in this position because we didn't always ask that question ourselves: what's in the best interest of the consumer?
I want you to think about the word toolbox. What is a toolbox? A toolbox is a box full of tools that you use to build something great. At Real Estate Rockstars, we've created our own free toolbox. So everybody that comes on the show as a guest brings a tool with them, and we plow them all into this toolbox, and we give it away for our viewing audience to basically use as they wish. Everything we put in there is an actionable item that can be downloaded, can be printed, can be used immediately. And we got things like scripts and dialogues, checklists for teams, checklists to keep agents accountable, referral forms that are filled out at settlement to get referrals by your buyers and sellers. Everything you could think of that you could use on a regular basis about real estate is included in this toolbox. And it's helping agents worldwide sell more houses and make their jobs a lot easier and processes much more efficient. And the thing is, it's absolutely free. All you got to do is go to hibandigital.com/toolbox or text the word toolbox to 444-999. That's toolbox 444-999. Do it now. Hey, real estate agents and rock stars. If you're getting value out of the content in this episode, make sure you like the video and subscribe to this channel. Also, click the little bell icon to be notified about upcoming episodes. And I would also love it if you left a comment. and shared the most impactful tips and tactics you've learned from the knowledge shared in this episode, or even maybe make a suggestion requesting a topic of what you'd like to learn in future episodes. I welcome any feedback below. Now, back to the episode. Well, that's why she kept asking the Justice Department what's in the best interest of the consumer. You know, how does it ben like when Long and Foster creates this, you know, exclusive thing on their website where only certain buyers can get at it, right? Any certain buyers can get at that listing. And that's Kevin Kaufman's grandma wants to buy a house. Is it fair for Grandma Kaufman that she can only get it through a Long and Foster agent if her son is an agent with EXP? Is that so? You know what I mean? I mean, so is that fair for your grandmother? Yes or no?
You know what? I think it's for the grandmother to make that judgment call. I mean, I think at the end of the day, what we've got to do is we've got to let the consumers decide what they want. And like, there's no doubt this is challenging the status quo. What I'm more concerned of is the seller. Like, is it fair for that seller to only have it, say, on that one website versus everywhere, on the MLS, on Zillow, on Redfin, on the agent, on the seller's personal
website? Right. Yeah, I agree with that too, right? I don't think here's the thing, is it okay? So is it fair for Grandma? No. Is it fair for the seller? No, because the seller, I don't want to use the word lied to, but the seller's been told
that's my point.
This is going to benefit you because someone will pay more for it, or this is going to benefit you by less showing time, which in the long run could make you more money, which I guess it could. But in reality, by putting it in an auction type atmosphere, it's going to make the most money. I don't know if it's disclosed to the seller that, hey, by putting it in Compass exclusives, you may sell it for a lot less than if you brought it to an auction with 8,000 agents that know about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a slippery slope, and there's two sides to this. I think the part of the problem is like it's the barrier to entry in our industry is low, and it's not like that is those are conversations that those are had at the kitchen table. Pat, you've had plenty of those conversations with sellers in your career. And now you're a fair and honest guy, but not everybody is. And I think that that's something that, because we've allowed that to be in our industry for so long, that we now have to deal with the consequences of that, which is we've got these outside forces, whether it's Compass. Compass is a brokerage, and they're not, they're different. Long and Foster is a brokerage. But we've got these other companies that are coming in and going, hey, I don't know.
Well, and then what happens is everyone starts doing it, right? Everyone starts doing it because it becomes okay. Before it was a taboo, right? I mean, I back in the day, I tried to do some of that, right? And I got holy hell, you're not allowed to do that. And I always went to the broker and they say, you're allowed to do it so long as the seller knows that you're doing it. But what Renee was saying, or Danae Evans was saying, and this is a quote, she said, some of these brokers, right, are putting profit first. And I don't need to go into any more of what she said other than that statement, because putting profit. So you got to ask, as Long and Foster and Compass, are they putting profit first? Are they putting their agents getting paid first? Yes, which they're allowed to do. And again, this is capitalism. You know what I mean? It's fine. It's okay. It's not illegal, right? But her point is, hey, we need something. She even said, this is an opportunity for a heavy hand to come in and tell us how to operate. Like, we're not allowed to do this anymore, guys. The MLSs we're not going to allow this to happen. And my thought on that is, first of all, I don't think that that's possible. I don't think you could come in and tell Compass and Long and Fawcett, you cannot do this. And there's many other companies that are doing this, by the way. I'm not picking on those two, but those just happen to be the two big ones that were mentioned. I'll tell you what is going to actually solve this problem in a true capitalist society, in a true free market. And it probably wasn't discussed there, but it's certainly been discussed with me or you. It's a decoupling of the damn commission. Because if your grandmother was dealing with a platform where it was a decoupled commission, it wouldn't matter. She would then go to you and say, son or grandson, can I pay you $2,000 to write me a contract? There's a listing I want to buy on Compass's website. You would say yes, and Compass would be, that's cool, because we're not making any additional monies anyways by selling it in-house. Am I making sense? And that will solve the problem once and for all.
Yeah, I mean, I think bottom line is it's just another sign of the times. There's a lot of changes that are probably coming, and this is just another example of the way where we're at, right? This is just where we're at today, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens as time goes on and more of this gets brought up to Department of Justice and other government officials. I know this, man. I know as things change and as industries rely on the laws and the way things have, quote, always been, the less likely their future is rosy.
Yeah, I agree. Last thing we'll talk about is finally, right? There's some apps coming out. There's an app called Earnest, and one has been out for rent for a while called Dwala. But what they're trying to do is get rid of the check, right? Get rid of the earnest money deposit check. And so again, why are we talking about this on this show? Why is this newsworthy for real estate agents?
Well, I mean, the reality is like you said, you're talking about a physical check. Like, think about it. When you go deposit the earnest check, depending on where you're at, what state and what your role is, right? You might have to take it to the title company or have it couriered, or the seller's got to go get certified funds. Like, this should be electronic. Writing a check is no more secure, or going and getting a secured check or a money order is no more secure than being able to electronically transfer funds, right? So this is essentially, if you will, a Venmo specifically for earnest deposits. And quite frankly, it's long overdue. Like, this should have been around years ago. Why wasn't this out something like this out a long time ago?
Yeah.
So
if our kids can Venmo us and Cash App and Apple Pay for stuff, right? Why can't I put an earnest money deposit with an app on a phone? And actually, I would feel better as a buyer and as a seller. Number one, as a buyer, I feel better because I knew the money went into the account, right? And so they got my money. It must mean no one's going to screw me on this contract. Number two, as a seller, I know that the agent didn't take the deposit and stick it in his drawer. I remember one instance in my history where an agent that worked for me took an earnest money deposit and put it in his dumbass drawer and let it sit there. And then the deal fell through after the home inspection. And I had to pay him out of corporate funds or, whatever. I had to pay for that. It was a disagreement. And rather than take it to court, I was like, here's your money back. And I paid for it out of my own pocket. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Because he didn't deposit it in time.
Again, most of our problems come back because of the way we've behaved over time. But this just something ridiculous, like something this small, if you will. It's big because it's a lot of money. But the fact that we should be able to do this electronically. There's no reason to me as the real professional to touch check. It's not those funds aren't mine, right? I'm not a party to the contract, and I'm certainly not supposed to be holding those funds. So why not just make it electronic, make it secure, make it a very easy process? This is all about making it easy for the consumer. So I love the idea of this Earnest app. They're not yet available in the app stores. They've got a website or you can go on and use. I want to say they've already got like 12,000 banks that they can be linked to. But hopefully that'll be out in the app stores, the Google Play and the Apple App Store here soon, and we can start using this.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. And then, of course, the real estate agent might say, hey, well, what if I just want to make an offer? Well, that's fine too. They don't have to necessarily, I don't know if the whole concept of putting your money where your mouth is relevant, meaning let's say, okay, you put an offer, so you write a check for $10,000 and put it with the offer, and that's a token considering you're putting your money where your mouth is. But in reality, it's going to take 3 or 4 days to clear that check anyways, and you could cancel it, right? So by signing something that says you're going to commit to Venmoing 10 grand, or whatever the app is called, 10 grand, is the same thing. And there's and a lot of this disruptive technology now is going to like Redfin Direct, which is letters of intent, right? Just like commercial real estate agents anyway. So if you're going to do a letter of intent, you might want to you could probably put your bank number. You could probably, sign something that says, or verify something that says this money will be transferred upon you agreeing to it again, or a credit card number. There's other ways to put your money where your mouth is, where you don't need a physical check. Does that make sense? Yeah,
totally. No need for physical checks anymore. It's bad enough they still get used at the grocery store. So when you're in line.
Oh my God.
All right, buddy. Well, I think that's all we got for this week. It's been a fun week, and I'm glad you're back from vacation. Looking forward to hanging out with real estate rock stars next week too on State of the Market.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
All right, man.
Thanks for tuning into the State of the Market podcast with your host, Pat Hyben and Kevin Kaufman.
Thank you so much for listening to the State of the Market. If you have any news you would like us to cover, please go to Next Level Agents on Facebook or send an email to info@rebusuniversity.com. That's info@rebusuniversity, REBUS, university.com, and we'll be sure to bring it up.